For elder abuse victims that may have dementia, can an advocate working with such an individual share information with other professionals?
Well, a confidential advocate working under VAWA or working under a state privilege has a requirement to protect choice and privacy for the person that they are working with. There's nothing in VAWA or in the law that says if you are working with somebody who you feel can't exercise choice in their information because of dementia or capacity issues, that means that you exercise choice for them. So let me repeat that. There's nothing in the statute that says if a person can't make choices about what information gets shared, there's nothing in the law or in the principles of confidentiality that says it's your job as an advocate to start making choices for them. That's outside of your role. And this is something that lawyers struggle with and advocates struggle with because it is your job to take direction from a client. And when you have a client who isn't able to give you direction, that might limit the work that you're able to do with or for them. But advocates are in a better position than lawyers because much of the role of an advocate is to listen and to be present and to be patient. And those are all things that you can do even if you're working with somebody who is experiencing an episode of dementia or seems to be struggling with decision-making or capacity. You still have the ability to be present, to listen, to be supportive, and to just look for other strategies. Is there someone in your life that you would like to tell about this? So there might be someone in their family that they trust to tell, who then might be in a position to take action or to make choices for the person because they're an appropriate stand-in legal decision maker. But an advocate is not a stand-in legal decision maker, and they shouldn't put themselves in that role.
What is it that we're doing or that we could do that might help make the relationship and what we're trying to achieve more effective for that person? So, for example, if I'm working with someone who, let's say, has autism, and through the conversation, I'm not clear that what I just explained in this consent form that has to be signed, I'm not sure that that person understands. So what I would want to do is set aside the paperwork and start to figure out through questions, through additional dialogue, how that person communicates, how they understand information, and if from that dialogue I get the sense that this person is not fully comprehending what it is that I'm doing, first and foremost, I'm definitely not going to have them sign that informed consent form because I can't guarantee that the consent that they're giving is indeed informed. So at that point, what I would do is I'd kind of sit back and figure out with that individual, and with that individual first, is there anyone else in your life that you trust, that supports you on a regular basis? And I might ask the question a little differently. Then I would find out whether or not that person would be willing to have me contact or that person contact that person to see if they could maybe assist with, communication or understanding. Now, the dilemma is that, for example, in a lot of domestic violence programs and sexual assault programs, making that call to a third party is not something that they can do. And they can't do it because of confidentiality. And they can't do it because, depending on the various systems that fund the services that they offer, prohibit disclosure to a third party without the person's informed consent. So you're in what I call the capacity and consent conundrum. It is a quagmire. It is complex. So part of what I would recommend is before you find yourself, this requires being proactive. I think organizations and agencies, especially those that either do serve or should be serving older adults that have dementia or capacity issues or people with disabilities, is figuring out who else in your community can come in and work with staff, work with advocates to figure out, how do I, in my limited capacity, I'm not a medical professional, how do I figure out someone's capacity to consent to services? You know, are there a few questions that I can be trained on, that staff can be trained on, so that we can get a sense of whether or not we can actually move forward with that person in a way that is confident and respectful of where they are and who they are. There are no easy answers. There is not a checklist. And many of us who work in this field, we wish there were a checklist, but there's no checklist for what you do and how you work with someone who might have dementia or decreased cognitive capacity. But at the very least, what we have to do is ensure that we're figuring out, first and foremost, who it is we could possibly bring into the conversation to begin to figure out with the person, not behind their back. This is done with the person. Who is it that we can bring in to help figure out what's happening for the individual, as well as any strategies that might be needed to make the person safer?